Pumpkin. It's so beautiful.
I love you.
So today I wanted to discuss something odd, or a topic that you rarely hear about. But I believe that even as we share our experiences, these experiences will help one or two people. And so the topic here to eat you, what were the hardest things that you encountered during your divorce? What were your major highlights? Things that you deemed as tough, and they stood out as the highlight during that phase. So I'm not sure if we're gonna answer one, and then, or we're gonna go through your list and then I go to mine.
Okay. If we are highlighting 5 each, I think let's just maybe focus on one person and then move.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay. So what were your hardest things during your
my divorce in my previous marriage?
Previous marriage, yes.
Okay.
We are married, by the way.
Because some people just come in, hey, why? Okay, the 5 most hardest things about my divorce, just highlightile apha.
Yes.
Number 1, it was going against a promise that I made to God.
Yeah, why you copying mine? Okay.
Cool. Copying yours?
It's fine.
Yeah, because your word is your bond, so it feels like you cannot stand or you cannot withstand the storms that comes with it. And I remember going home when we were just reaching the end, and my family would say kuyanyamezelwa sisemtshatweni, meaning you have to ba unyamezele emtshatweni. So ezi zinto kakade zinto zasemtshatweni. And I tried, I think for an extra 2 months or 3 months, I tried ukunyamezela, but I could not do it. So making a decision to separate from someone after you stood there in front of God and said, Bana, through thick and thin, till death do us part. And Gogo, it's almost like you can't even keep your own word. If you there's a song like Lauren Hill Uti, every day people lie to God, so what makes you think that they won't lie to you? So it's self-betrayal. It's almost like, hey, but I betrayed God too, because I said I could do this.
Yes.
So that was number 1 on my list. And the second one was having to forgive. It was just for me, in fact, too, forgiveness and regret at the same time.
Okay.
Having to forgive myself for that, for the pain and the struggle that came with it.
Yes.
Because before I could forgive him, I had to forgive myself too, for allowing me to go through that, because signs were there. Signs were there, but that same thing I said, Yobana, you betray yourself when you constantly want hope that things will work out. Well, I think it's part of the package. At the end of the day, we all hope that it's going to work out. We don't get married to divorce, to get divorced.
Yeah.
And so it took me a lot to forgive. It took me a lot of time to forgive myself. It's easier to forgive the next person, but it really took a while for me to say, okay, fine, ndiqolile ngoku, And the regret in my land, or regret came only when I experienced the toughest, hardest challenges and struggles after marriage. Because I literally went from here to boom, hitting the ground. And there were moments where I felt, Bana, I could just end all of this struggle and just go back. Because I know if I go back, at least I will have this and this and this and that. But again, I could not allow myself to go through that pain. There is pain that material things can take away. But then there is pain that requires you to even lose the material things. Focus it just on that pain. Where you are willing to, when you say, I'm willing to lose all of these things just for peace, So there were moments where I regretted my decision. Ubanala back and forth. I remember at some point, just before the end of the marriage, I would pack up my clothes and go and sleep over at a friend's house.
Yeah.
I'd pack, go and sleep at a friend's house. And then 2-3 days later, the heart says, okay, in the right to go. You start missing the abuse and the pain. And you go back. When you go back, then 2-3 more days, and then it hits again, and then you go packing again. And I remember going to Barbara, my psychologist, and Barbara said to me, well, you have to stop now. You have to stop this packing. Stay and wait for your heart. Just stay, no matter how hard it is, stay and wait for your heart, because the reason why you keep on going back and forth is because your mind is telling you something else. Your heart is also telling you something else. So your heart takes you back. Your mind says, I can't take this anymore, and you go. The heart says, okay, but shame, man, we can work on this. We and you go back. So wait on your heart now. At least you know what your mind wants. Wait on your heart. And so the end was not so difficult for me, because the day I decided, let's end. These are the perks of living in a rural areas of Johannesburg. Where was I?
The perks.
I lost it.
Wait for your heart.
Wait for your heart.
Yeah.
Thank you. Don't go packing. So when the day came, inhliziyo yam isithi, I can't take this anymore. It was a beautiful day like this. There was no fight. He was willing to change. We were okay. We were happy. He had just gone out to a friend, and then the heart said, now it's time to move. Even when I said to him, I'm moving out, I'm leaving, I don't want this anymore, he was shocked, because the first thing he asked was, what did I do now? I thought we were okay. And I could not explain. It was now not, it had nothing to do with into ayenzileyo. It was almost like the cup is full. It's spilling over now. I can't be with you. But I still love you with the love of God. I'll love you like my sibling. But the marriage part of it, ayizusebenza. So that's point number?
That's point number 2.
That's point number 2. I'm dragging this.
No, you're not. Please. Because you're mentioning something so powerful. And you are saying, in fact, I want to highlight this one, Uti. The back and forth of packing, it is because when you have gone temporarily, you begin to miss the abuse and the pain. I found it to be very deep. Can you expand on that?
So what we as individuals do is we get familiar as ndaweni. That's why if umntana umthathe from the city umse ezilalini for ixesha elithile, they will blend.
Yes.
and start understanding izinto zasezilalini, baqhele. And when you take them out of that comfort, so you build comfort within that storm, and you are able to navigate through it. So there are moments where you find your happiness, even gobulilwayo, So you miss the abuse because your mind does not want any change. It's what you know. It's what you know. But why would I sit at my friend's place and kukalumtulo apa? It gets boring. I need something to stimulate me. I know if I go home, there's one thing that this person is going to do that's going to tick me off. And when they do it, you kind of like get an adrenaline. It's almost like a high, a false high. Your heart is so used to just going there. You get pumped up, and then you calm yourself down. Some people calm themselves down by turning into substance abuse. They drink because they want to drown these sorrows. But then the minute they allow themselves to drown a sorrow, then there's 2 more sorrows to drown. Before you know it, bangena pattern of drowning sorrows every day, because they're so addicted to these
drown in
things. So
sorrows.
people get addicted to pain
And abuse.
and abuse. Not that they don't see anything wrong with it, but it's
They've
almost like
accepted it.
you've accepted it.
Okay. So that was your point number 2.
Yeah, number
Okay.
3, the hardest thing was starting afresh and finding new identity. Remember, you sleep next to this person, you argue with this person, and the reason you argue and fight with these people is because you want them to be better people.
And you
don't,
love this person.
and you love
That's
them. You want
important.
to see them do good. You know, awusithi hayi but suyishiya apha, you know, and then they fight back. It is just to improve aba bantu, you know. So and then there are days when it's really, really good. And that's one thing about abusive marriages, is that it's really, really good, and it's really, really bad. You know, like when we fight, and then when we love each other, we really love each other. So it's almost like koi up and a down. The down is so down, like extremely down.
Sorry, there's so many planes.
Especially in the mornings, kind of the choppers. And having to wake up alone on your bed, you know, and making decisions. I mean, as a woman, there are a lot of things that you don't bother yourself with. They will take care of that. And now life is looking at you. You have to put food on the table. You have to worry about these holidays. You have to worry about these children. If the car doesn't start, you have to make that call to the insurance.
Yeah.
If you get stuck on the side of the road, not that I got stuck, but if you get stuck on the road now, you are the one that has to get out of the car to check if the tires are okay. You know, and then just that new change. It's scary. Change. The reason why people bengayifuni change is because it is scary. Because it tests you. It's you going against everything that you know, to say, okay, I'm creating a new identity. I'm letting go of old self, and now I have to learn new habits and ways to do things. And that was hard for me. More especially because I was not mentally 100%. And for me, it was more on the anxiety side. I mean, I was diagnosed with anxiety, you know. And I was asked by a psychiatrist to start taking repeat scripted medication until I discovered Barbara, who's my psychologist. And Barbara said, no, leave all that stuff. Let's fix your mind. Because the reason why you are anxious is because of all the baggage that you are carrying. So let's just declutter everything. Let's unpack everything. Leave, because the medication wasn't working for me. It kind of like made me feel very tired. And I would feel like a zombie throughout the day. And she said, take all that medication. Don't ever take don't take a single pill from that. Now we're gonna do a lot of writing. We'll do a lot of breathing exercises, and just I'll follow her up. I want to see you every second week. And Nyani, we went through this land, and my mind was just messed up. You know, I was so attached to that past in the newness of things. Like I was in this life trying to get used to staying in a smaller nyana apartment, and accepting that I was there. So it was the hardest thing was to accept that I was there. So I wouldn't, for an example, want to go out to indawo where I have to pay imali encinci, because I was still attached to that lifestyle. If someone sold me anything cheap, I would ask what's wrong with it. You know, why is it so cheap? Because and now creating and getting that new self was the hardest. I remember I had to change the way I dressed. I had to shave off my hair. I had to do things differently.
Why was that important? The shaving. Why was it important?
she said to me, and now I agree, that when you are touched, just the senses, there is if you for an example smell someone's scent, it sits somewhere, and you go to the mall, and let's say you haven't seen these people in months, you go to the mall and you smell that scent again, you are reminded of those people. So I had a perfume, and he bought this perfume for me. So anytime I was that would compliment me on the smell, I would quickly my file. This is how I got to know about this perfume. The clothes. Oh, I remember we bought this jacket when we were on our trip in Cape Town. Or he brought me these sneakers when we went to Paris, and this and this and this and this and that. So it was everything was so attached to him as a reminder. So I couldn't completely move away from him. Hence, I always say to people, you can never heal from a person by walking the same journey with the same person, and you have to heal away from someone. So healing away meant for me, but I had to totally, completely disconnect myself. I had to disconnect anything that would be a reminder, whether good or bad, whether it's this livumba, whether it's a favorite meal, whether it's juice that I used to buy that we used to enjoy. I had to now start, so that when this joining mirror now, I'm meeting me for the first time.
Sure.
And my last one.
That was number 3, baby.
4.
Number 4?
Yeah, I did number 4.
Well, what was number 4?
So my number 1 was going against the promise
number 2,
that I made to God. And number 2 was forgiveness. Number 3 was regret.
Oh, okay. So regret was number 3, okay.
And then number 4 was starting afresh and creating that new image. And then my last one was the feeling of failure. So most of the time, when you want a car.
I wrote that as well. I wrote that one as well.
What?
The feeling of failure.
Yeah. Oh wow, you copied my notes.
Wow.
When you want a certain car and you start seeing it on the road. When I went through my divorce, in fact when I got divorced and I was starting afresh on my own, people were getting married. People were pregnant in their marriages. People were succeeding in their marriages. People spoke about their marriages, and I had to now go and date. I had to go now and be someone's girlfriend with that experience, yomchado that failed. So you these things just when they happen around you, they force you to think otherwise about yourself. And I failed, man. Not only failing because of ezinto jonga, but also failing the people that looked up to you.
Yes.
Failing the people that said, we look up to you. You guys are the most perfect couple, and would love to have you.
Yes.
We want our marriage to be exactly like yours. And you can't say to that person, it's actually worse than you think. It's not even anything. And you look at these people and you're like, eish, I feel like I've failed these people. They really looked, and believe if I myself, the one person, I was very young when I got married. So it was almost like, I want my daughter to also get married at your age, because you learn in marriage and you grow together. So yeah, that's
sure.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
And those are paragraphs, but you just summarize them nicely. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. Amazing. Now my turn.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were going to ask Malogo, is it my turn?
Okay, it's your turn now. What are they doing, those two? I think Ocean is holding a sock and is running away with it. So I want, first of all, before we go to 10 yako, Bana, it is so beautiful. I want to appreciate you. It's so beautiful that you and I in our marriage can even talk about such things, because in other marriages people are not even allowed to talk about their feelings like that. So thank you so much, baby. And I know when we open that room, Tina, yokwazi ukuvula all the communication now.
Yes. What I think that the reason it's important is because you want to be aware, okay, of your spouse's pain points. You know, so that you do your homework to check if is she healed from those areas, or is there some work that you need to exert in that area? Because, like it or not, that will impact then your current marriage if those things are not dealt with. You know, so it's important then to discuss such. So, two things that you mentioned that I also wrote. It's amazing that the first one that you wrote was moving away from your vows. You know, that was the number one as well.
Yes.
You know, so I'll just highlight it, but I'll add two more so that I don't repeat the same. So that was number one for me as well. So moving away from my vows, you know, the promise I made before God, the people, the friends, the family, you know, the promise I made to her dad, you know, in our own one-on-ones when he called me and said, Nana, you know, I trust you and all that, and I made a vow before him. So having to move away from that was the hardest thing, you know, for me. And it goes back to what you say, Kuti. You disappoint yourself, you go against your word, and who will trust you then, whatever you say thereafter, you know? So that was the biggest one as well, you know? Yeah, no, that was the biggest one for me. That was hard, okay? So I'm not gonna go deeper into it since you've highlighted it in your own experience. But the second one for me, that was a disappointment, or that was the hardest for me during that process, were the things that I never knew before that were discovered during that process. Things I wish I would have known about my spouse, and I think I would have responded better. You know, I would have probably assisted, you know, so these are things that I thought they were major, but they were entrusted to friends. You know, they were disclosed to friends and not to myself, you know, having lived with this person for a while. So for me that was disappointing, you know, but I knew then that there was no trust, there was no complete trust, because I mean, if you can't trust me with that level of vulnerability, then what is it that we are doing if you are saying we have each other's backs? So that disappointed me a lot, not one or two things, but I mean, you know, so that was the hardest for me during that process. I was thinking, no man, you know, and I kept on defending, no, and was told me, you've got it all wrong. That was the hardest. The third one was the loss of credibility. I think during that time I prized more value in what people thought about me, how they perceived me. You know, so my credibility and my reputation was so much important, you know, for me and how people perceive me. So having to walk away from that and knowing that your reputation and your credibility is on the floor, especially during the social media trolls and all that. That was the hardest, you know, and having to defend yourself in the, you know, in the midst of that. And later on there, having to learn that you don't really have to defend yourself, you know, because truth is a way of, you know, coming out at the end of the day. So overcoming people's opinion of me was one of the hardest things to, you know, that I appreciate now, because now that I've overcome that, really, I don't really pay much attention to that. It was so important to me during that time. It is no longer important to me because I've understood that people will always have different opinions of you. If there are 100 people in the room, they all have different perceptions of you, you know, so you can't control that. So why would I try and frustrate myself with things that I can't control, you know? So that was the hardest. So the number 4 for me was the transitioning of the children. You know, the transitioning of the children from, you know, the life they were used to the life now I was moving into. You know, the sense of uncertainty for the children for me that broke me. You know, that really broke me, because I needed to affirm them. And how do you communicate with small minds? With such small, precious minds, which this is where we are now, and because children want to see mom and dad together. And this is not working, and then having to help them to transition. Also, you are taking them to a land that is unknown to you. You are just trusting the process. You are trusting God, and you are trusting the process that this will work out, and having them to take my children through that journey, the brokenness through their small faces, and that was the hardest. That was the hardest. That was the hardest.
Do you, I'm sorry, can I just ask on that note, do you think that is number one reason for people who are in marriages, abayazi yubana, there is no marriage here? Do you think then they hold on to those things but I don't want to divorce for the sake? Do you think there are a lot of people that are staying in marriages that are not working out for the sake of the children?
Yes. So there are many, there are countless people who are in that state. But what liberated me personally was having to juxtapose between their livelihood then and what I had wanted then, or what I had envisaged a family to be, and then I needed to make a decision. Do I want my children to grow in such an environment where there's so much tension and density of anger and all these things? Am I developing healthy children if I'm allowing my children to be in this state? I don't think my children want unhappy parents. So I needed to make a decision. In fact, what helped me, because I'm a very loyal person. So what helped me, I remember I was driving from Midrand to Sentin, and I was listening to Eckhart Tolle. And Eckhart said, in any situation that you find yourself in, there are three choices you have. One, it's either you try to change the situation, focus on changing the situation. And for years I did that, in trying to change the situation, and the situation could not change, And that is why I always say to people, never undermine or underestimate your spouse. No matter how powerful you think you are, never look down to your spouse, because that energy is felt from the other hand, and no matter what they can do, they can never thrive for as long as they are around your presence. If you undermine the energy of undermining, it's not even in the words you say. The words are just an add-on, but the energy is felt. You can feel someone who is condescending towards you, So never do that, because that person feels it. And for as long as they are next to you, they can never thrive, because the environment is not conducive for them to blossom and thrive, and many other things that happen to that. So he said you can change. And I did that, and I realized that, it was hectic. Then secondly, he said, if you can't change the situation, then you can choose to accept it. That state of acceptance then says, I'm doing this for the sake of my children.
That's number two.
That's number
where
two.
Most people are stuck.
Yeah, I'm just doing this for the sake of my children. I'm doing this for the sake of my reputation and the vows I made before God. I'm doing this for that. Not knowing that then you will be developing cancers, and all these diseases that take place because of your uneasiness in the situation, and then you find yourself now in that situation, and you stay in that situation before you know it, you are gone. So what I did then, Jan Eckhart then
so you are dying every second.
You are dying every second because the environment is not conducive. I learned up the principle of environment many years ago. One of the preachers who said, the environment is more powerful than the seed. The environment is more powerful than the seed. And he made an example to say you can take a potato seed and sow it somewhere in the desert of Dubai and leave it there for 20 years. When you go back there, you find the same seed in that same spot. Why? Not because there's no potential. Potential is innate, but the environment is not conducive for this to sprout. And he said you can take the same seed after 20 years, sow it in a conducive and fertile ground. That same seed will still produce. So the environment is more powerful than the seed. Hence, many potentials in townships and all these places, they suffer sabotage. It is because the environment is more powerful than the seed. Young potentials turning to crime and all this because the environment is more powerful than the seed.
Sure.
So that's what I learned. The environment is more powerful than the seed. And then that's when the third one, Eckhart Tolle said, I'm mixing the two, John Eckhart and Eckhart Tolle. Those are two different people. So then Eckhart said, the third thing that you need to do, if you have tried to change and tried to accept the situation, is now to remove yourself from the situation. He says that the third option that you have. You can choose to remove yourself from the situation. Mascomo, I was driving. When I hit that point, I knew that I'm removing myself. No matter what it will come with, I'm willing. Because I knew I had only two options. It's either... No, I knew that if I'm in that environment, it's either I commit suicide or I remove myself. Then I chose the latter to say, you know what, it is not worth it. And I remember sitting down with her and saying to her, you know what, we loved each other from a very young age. This is not working. We are going to kill each other. We will die prematurely because we are not in the right environment. We are not in the right environment for each other. So let us not do this to ourselves. It is unnecessary. What we can do is to move separate ways and just love our children. Let's just do that. At that point, my heart was ready.
Your heart was
my heart. So you said something so powerful because when I reflect on it, I think that's where I came into, because I remember the last trigger that led to that decision was an incident that took place, which broke me, which took place in 2018. When I found out about that incident, my heart was not ready, and I remember saying, you know what, I forgive you. But why would you do something like this? But I forgive you, and because I was always this person who loves a peaceable environment. So I would compromise my feelings for the sake of peace. I would compromise what was important to me for the sake of peace. And then I said, you know what, I have never done this in your lifetime. I have never, you have seen me, but I forgive you anyway. Not knowing that my heart was not ready. Because I could feel Kuti. From then on, things were never the same again. No matter how I tried, things were never the same again for me, And then I decided then later on to remove myself in 2020, from that environment. And that was the best decision I ever made for myself. When I look back to that decision, I realized, Kuti, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. So that was long-winded, but yeah.
That was long. That was long.
So
sure.
So yeah. Then I said that we are overcoming people's opinions about, and the children's transitioning process. And then where my children are now, their mental aptitude, it's only because of the mercy of God. I could not have envisaged that, and I don't think that when parents leave their families, they leave them because they want to break their children. They leave them because they choose themselves in the midst of that to say, you know what, I better be absent from this situation, otherwise it will lead to somewhere that I don't want to go. So let me rather remove myself and see what happens. So when I removed myself and leaving my children, I was just hoping for the best. And by the mercy of God, He turned it on my favor. And I'm with my children. And how they have turned out, it's only the mercy of God.
And
it is not something I take for granted. It is the mercy of God. You've seen it through. It's the mercy of God. Yeah, so the children transitioning care was one of the key things for me. Was one of the difficult things, but I thank God we are where we are today, because I stood my ground, as far as my children are concerned.
Through all the storms.
Through all the storms. The number 5 is one that you mentioned, and that was coming to a point of accepting failure. For me, that was one of the most difficult ones, accepting that, what, Utando, you have failed in your marriage.
Yeah.
Because the tendency is that you blame everything to the next person, and you do not take responsibility. It is important to take responsibility because you also contributed. So I needed to come to that point of accepting that I failed my marriage and having to live with that regret.
That is the hardest.
That was the
hardest one.
Then, because I could not live with that failure, I don't like failure, then I needed to reword failure, the word failure, to say my failures were my learning curves and my learning points. Yeah, so these are the things that I learned about marriage. So I know how not to do marriage because of the things I learned in marriage.
Sure.
Now I know how not to do marriage. I know the do's and don'ts. 14 years in marriage is not a child's play. So I know the do's and don'ts in marriage. Not entirely, but I know there's just the quick wins. I mean, people will call them the low-hanging fruits. No-go areas and the go areas and all that. So accepting failure was one of the difficult things for me.
And I can understand why it's difficult, because in that process of growing together and making the decision, Yobana, okay, it is us now. We are here, we are together. There are promises made. There are sacrifices made. I was married to a chief nuclear physicist. At the time, I didn't even know what that meant. When I asked him, when I met him, he was just a nuclear physicist. Then he got a promotion, and we had to go and celebrate. Hey, what is the promotion about? I'm a chief nuclear physicist. What is that? So you can imagine how far low I was and how up high he was. And on his side, he could easily come now in our marriage and say, I brought her up from nothing. And granted so, but it would also, if he wants to fight it, he could also say, you used me to be where you are. You used me as a step ladder to be where you are. So those sacrifices, I mean, a nuclear physicist maybe would marry a doctor at least, but then they go so far below, and they affirm you, because there's a beautiful side of marriage, guys, in as much as we will talk about then they did this and then they took from me and then I did, you loved this person, you made a decision, but now you want to spend the rest of your life with this person. And so this person also made sacrifices. I remember him saying to me, okay, you need to find an institution, and then we pay so that you can go and study, and they would make sure Ubana, you are up to standard, you are meeting up, you are growing together. So these are sacrifices, because I mean, I came with I was working for government at the time. I was just getting really peanuts, compared to what he was getting. Not that it was a competition or anything, but he still had to pour petrol for me to go to work. He still had to give an allowance to buy clothes over and above the salary that I was getting, because it was not enough. But it was enough to take care of me on my own, when he met me in my apartment and everything else. So there's a lot of lifting up. There's a whole lot of building, and one has to sometimes make a sacrifice to bring the other up. And I think on your point number 2, Yaka Eckhart, where you said then you maybe the second one is to accept the situation. I think some other people are then trapped in number 2 based on how this person has always been there for me, whether it's painful or struggle or how they've lifted you up. Banayo, I remember when I met Usman Bani, I didn't even know I was just a boy or I was just a girl, and now I'm a professional. They built me up, so I would feel like I'm betraying them if I left. But everything else in your marriage is going against this marriage. And now you upelu city, I'm accepting, not knowing that une anxiety, une depression, une cancer, une blood pressure, and ultimately you die because of this situation. So I love when you shared about the failure, when I had to accept that I failed, because there were moments where you picked each other up. when you fell, and now maybe because you are the one that wanted to remove yourself out of the situation, the other person now felt bana, but there was a time I picked you up.
Yes.
Why can't you pick me up now? And so it creates that entitlement thing. If you are succeeding, then I'm entitled to your success because I was also there when you couldn't. I also lifted you up, you know. So it's that thing.
So
man.
I think that is the war then that takes place within you. To say, surely, indeed, this person was there for me when I started off. I had nothing. She was in a good space than myself, you know. That and during that process and through her help as well, I was able then to come up. You know, I remember in our case, I mean, our first 7 years, she took care of everything. You know, the bits and pieces that I was bringing on the table, you know, didn't make that much difference because I was still building my career from scratch. And I mean, even the line of business that I'm in, it was not something that people were mostly acquainted with in the Eastern Cape. So having to educate now the whole community about what I do was something else, you know. But when we moved to Johannesburg, then the last 7 years,
You had to now step up
I had to
and
recompense,
take care.
you know, and take care of everything, and it happened well.
Which was marriage. I
which
mean,
was
that's marriage.
I
That's
think
marriage.
for me, Maskomo, one of the key things that were difficult was coming to that understanding about. For the longest while, the complaint was, Tando, you must come up and do something, bring something on the table.
Meaning it was not enough,
It was
whatever
not
you
enough,
thought
you
was
know,
enough.
do this, you know. Then Lutando emerges and he comes up, you know, and he stands up for his family. Then there's sabotage. So, I mean, how then do you reconcile the two? You want the success. When the success is here, you sabotage the very same success you wanted. Then what are we doing? When it's not there, we want it. We fight because we want it and it's not there. The fight is on that. When it's there, we fight because it's here.
Because you brought it, not me.
Yeah, so for me, those were the, you know, that was a defining moment for me that made me as well to emboss the decision. To say, you know what, this is not for me. You know, I remember saying, you know, I just want to be happy. And I remember sitting with her and saying, you know, I don't think we came into each other's lives because we wanted to frustrate each other. I believe that we came to each other's life because we wanted to improve the quality of one another. And because that is not happening, we are so unhappy. You know, I believe in happiness. And I believe in love. I grew up from a family of love, so I know what love is. You know, and I know when love is not there. This is not love, and I don't want this for myself and from where I believe I'm going. You know, so that was a difficult thing. And to appreciate and also to acknowledge the fact that, you know what, that we want this success. Because we are still in the process of wanting it, we fight about this thing. But when we have this success, we fight about the very same success that we have wanted all this time. And then there's sabotage, there's no appreciation of efforts. So you must appreciate every effort of your spouse. You have to
No
appreciate,
matter how small.
you have to appreciate any form of initiative that comes from your spouse, no matter how small it is from your eyes. And don't compare. One of the comparison situation to say, you know, no, you can build to that level. You know, so yeah, that was a very difficult one for me. To acknowledge Kuti. No man, we are not going anywhere here. We are chasing our tails. We want success. When it's not there, we fight. When we have received it, we fight about the very same success we wanted. Then I said, no, then it's madness. It can never go anywhere. Then I had to choose myself for the first time. But the most difficult, then that signed it all, was coming to a point where I did not care anymore. Caring for me, caring for her was the most difficult thing. Yeah, it was the most difficult thing. Hence the initiatives that we do, because I cared deeply for her. You know, I cared deeply, and I cared deeply. But the more, I think it goes back to what you said, Uti, you can never heal from the very same place that hurt you. So I think that's what happened there. I cared so much, and I would go out of my way to ensure that, I reach out to this person, to ensure that they are in a good space. But that was not enough still. So having to live in a cycle of knowing that everything that you do is not enough does temper with your self-confidence and self-esteem, where you begin then to believe that you are not enough. Anything that you ever do is not enough. And that puts you in a vulnerable place, because anyone then who says to you, you know what, you're so powerful, I appreciate you, think, what are you saying? What are you saying? And so those are my 5, but I've shared more. And so divorce is one of the hardest things that I never wish to anyone on any soul. It's one of the hardest things. And it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about change. That change is not an easy thing for us as human beings. So for you to change and adapt to a new reality is one of the hardest things.
It's scary.
A scary thing. People who divorce, I consider them very brave people. Those are very brave people. Because these are people who say, I'm willing to pay any price.
No matter what you say, no matter what you do,
I'm willing to pay any price, because I still believe in my future. I believe that I can. And so I'm betting on that belief. Nothing else. I'm only betting on that belief that someday and one day something will emerge for me and things will turn out good.
Wow.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
For sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Just made me realize also what do you call it? When you go, the advantages and disadvantages of going through a divorce is the image.
The image.
Just the image,
the image.
Because you have a lot of people that are listening to two different sides of the story. You have the people that are listening. I had people that were listening to my story, and he had people that were listening to his story. And I remember when I started my dating life, when I met someone, when I met this person, they were also going through a divorce. They separated from their spouses. And that pain attracts pain for whatever reason. Pain just attracts pain. And that pain brought us together. But now, these horrible things happen. Horrible things happened. Horrible things. And now, tomorrow, you are seen now in that marriage because you don't understand the dynamics of that marriage and why it was not working out. And now you are in the fire in another marriage, and someone says now, this person that was married is busy wrecking other people's marriages.
Yeah.
And now you lose that whole image and the identity now, because you're thinking, I really didn't want to get involved in your business. I met someone who was paying a reflected and I thought, okay, we could. And now you coming out from this part, and this is how you see me. And so you never really know what you're doing. You really never know. I mean, even in your space, meeting you and starting and building together with all the dynamics of all the pointers that you've mentioned, it was not the hardest. I mean, it was the hardest for me too, because then it moved away from it being your thing there. Now it moved away from we are divorcing, but now it was more of we are divorcing because of her. She is the one that's not making it easy. Now everything was shifted to me. Then I become the culprit. Everyone looks at me and go, they have to make a decision whether they choose that or they choose this. And abanye, the image again still follows you, because people are looking at you and thinking, this is the lady that broke that marriage. But you find out from the story, Bana, this thing actually broke years before I even met this person, So there's EOE divorce. It's Sure.
And also, isn't it a conflict?
Not easy.
Okanye, isn't it a paradox? Ntoba, the very same thing that causes you to leave your marriage is the very same thing you do or you step into when you divorce.
Always the case. I think that comes from belonging. You know, the first boyfriend I dated after my marriage, the relationship didn't even last for 3 weeks. And the reason why it didn't last is because I wanted to play wife. And Diana, he was thinking, hey, it's too soon. It's only been 3 weeks, and this person has already asked, did you eat? This person is already, can I come to your apartment and wash the dishes and just maybe clean? Because I'm so used to being wife. I'm so used to being wife, you know. So that scared people away. So I understand why people then leave that one thing to go to something similar to it, because they identify with it. We all just want that love.
Remember, like, during that process as well, you have lost your identity. That's a major thing. You lose your identity because everything about your life had to do with this person. You know, that is why even now, 99.9% of relationships I lost because of that, you know, that previous marriage, you know. And even not to regret, you know, because it's a learning phase. Those people were fit enough for that season of my life.
Not the next one.
And I appreciate them for that season. And it's okay that they are not part of this season, because we are all on our own individual journeys of becoming. You know, so you appreciate that, and also you don't put labels on things to say, oh, because of so, you don't blame anyone. You take responsibility to say, you know what, for as long as you were in my life, then I appreciate you. You were enough for that season, you were fit for that season. This next season of my life, then it was supposed to be the way it is. You know, and you become comfortable with that. So, yeah, a divorce must come is one of the terrible things. But, and you know, Mfunso Duza, the late Mfunso Duza, God bless his soul. He, like chatisa, you know, he would say, "Akuphunywa kule nto." That's why kuthiwa umtshato uqhekekile, and we make a demonstration of someone coming through the wall. That's how you get out of marriage. Funeka qhekeze udonga uba mawuphumele, because akuphunywa kule nto. Le nto yinto kaThixo, and ke I think he should have been an actor, that man, you know, in a drama, it's a demonstration. Akuphunywa kule nto. Yinto kaThixo lena. You know, and you would see this vivid picture of really what God intended when marriage is concerned. You know, be that as it may, we are still the children of God.
Amen.
And we are here together and loving each other, having learned our lessons. And I don't think God looks at us through the lenses of failure. Yeah, I don't think God looks at us through the lenses of failure, but what God looks at us, He looks at us through the lenses of grace and His mercy, because He knows that we are human. You know, we are human, and we make errors, but what's important is to learn from your mistakes. I don't regret the decision I took. It was one of the best decisions I took by myself, because my life turned in a different way. The same desires that I had, you know, that was slumbering within my soul, were the same desires that I saw now emerging in my life. And I keep on asking myself, sure, what if I did not do this? Where would I be today? You know, so when you reflect on the past and ask yourself that question, then you become scared, because by I would have been 6 feet under. So I made the best decision for myself. Also, it makes you to be empathetic towards people. Yeah, because the tendency, in fact, the reason I got married was because I grew up from a dysfunctional background. So I wanted to create something for my children that's unique. So I wanted all my children to be within the ambits of marriage, you know. So I didn't like the idea of having, because I had experienced that. So now that it was not taking place and this was failing, I thought to myself, man, now this goes against my value system, because I wanted a solid family. And you know, that is why even I dreamt big and I had all these ambitious dreams and audacious dreams, because I had a picture of what a family should be. I didn't know that it was going to emerge the way it has.
And you would not have chosen that situation because
You
no
know?
one according to this guy I want to
Funale.
change an address for my
So
children.
it wants to be empathetic. And before you voice your 2 cents of wisdom, we answer from an empathetic point of view of saying, I was not there, I don't know what happened there. That is why I go to her, if the shoe fits, then wear it. Yeah. If you were not willing, if you could not walk a mile with me, then don't come and tell me your opinion about my standing. Let God be the one who judges me, wherever the decision that I took. But it was one of my best decisions. But also what helped me as an advantage is that now I'm no longer concerned about people's opinions of me.
Ish.
That freedom for me was the biggest freedom. That's freedom. Until you come to a point where you are no longer concerned about what people think about you. You are still in prison. And now I don't really know. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, it's neither here nor there what you say, and that's a freedom I got as a benefit for me because
and that's your opinion.
That's your
me.
opinion.
It's got nothing to
and
do
I
with
appreciate
me.
your opinion because that's how you should view things anyway. That's fine. As long as it suits you and it feels good for you, that's okay. But if you are not wearing my shoes, then my friend, you can't really, sit with your opinion. So the freedom I received from that church was the ability, to stay away from what people say or think about me. It really didn't matter. It doesn't matter today. I'm a free man because of that.
Amen. Amen.
So let's move on, Kemaskomo, to the next one.
Okay.
The next one then is, what advice or advices that you give someone who is in marriage, they want to work on their marriage, but they are looking for growth points, things that we can empower them with in building their families. Yeah. In fact, before you even go there, at what point do you give up in marriage? There's no template, right?
There's no template, but for me, I would say I only had to say tools down when I felt when I was slowly losing myself. Because you go into marriage, this person does everything to annoy you, and they say things, and they as long as it still doesn't affect you, I think that's still fine. If you can still talk about it. But when you don't know yourself, even in that marriage, there was a comment that stayed with me. I gave Usis Nombulelo, the lady that used to clean the house, a big land or loaf, blue cheese. And he came home and he said, where's the blue cheese that was in the fridge? And I said, I gave it to Snow. But how did I even think what was Uzinga? Because you don't even know the price of cheese.
Yeah.
And my friends then would they would tell you how I've always you don't even know the price of cheese, and that stayed in my heart. And when you are dying every day in something that was meant to be beautiful, but you are dying every day and you feel yourself dying every day, you suddenly lose interest. People they slowly distance themselves. Now your self-esteem, you get too tired, you are always sickly. That's when you start feeling, when I'm losing myself in this thing, I think that's when you should, because you are going to die. You are going to die. I said that to him. I said, when they called a meeting and they said, guys, don't you want to go for counseling and just work on this thing? I said, my only problem here is that I can tell you in the next coming year or two, one of us will be in prison serving life, and one of us is going to be in the grave. And I can't tell who is going to be where, but I know for a fact bana asizosana kwenda we right. And it divorce, because there's always one honest khokho. There's always this one who says, but I did this and this is what they did to me, they've hurt me, and that's the culprit. The culprit is always the one that comes out first to say, because my story about a divorce changed from how Abantu came and Bezon Balisela is story. It was a different thing altogether. And I was like, what?
Sure.
Is that what they told you happened?
Mm.
And I went, unlike you, I had to go and, no, this is not what it is.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I was just like, guys, whatever it is, if there was social media, then I'm sure they would have even said that there was no social media. But you get to a point for sure, Nyan, when you know that you've made a decision, accepting that you failed, you get to a point where you don't want to clean up the mess anymore.
Yeah, no.
You tell me I've killed in the process. I don't want to clean that mess. Tell me that I was arrested. Tell me I did this. The worst thing that one can think of. Say that only if it makes you feel better. Honestly, I couldn't care less how that is going to impact my life, because it's not going to do anything. But if saying that about me makes you feel better, by all means feel better. Say more things about me. Say more things so that you can sleep at night. You know? So the tarnishing of the image, I think abantu boyika nezazinto, because when you are married with someone, there are secrets involved. You tell me things, you know, that you wouldn't tell anyone. I tell you things that I would never tell anyone about other people, you know, because we sit in our marriage and we say, yeah, you know, and go over bana, hey, if I were to move away from this person. I read one thing on Facebook, and someone was saying, yay, if I would not even have a job, because I've said the worst things even about the people, about land. So marriage has become prison.
In my case, I went to a point where those things were then disclosed all over.
Yeah.
My businesses, everything.
Yeah.
You know, it was messy.
Yeah. Recruit people to help us fight this thing.
I remember.
My grandmother always used to say, ungaze ulwe nomuntu ongalwiyo nawe. Sukulwe nomuntu ongalwiyo.
That was the biggest thing for me. I remember saying to one of her friends, family friends, I said to her, you know, I would rather you take her side, because I only met you through her. And I understand your anger and where you stand. I understand even your frustration. But you don't know the truth. And because you don't know the truth, you have already taken a side. I want you to take that side. Take that side, because I don't need anyone to defend me. I remember saying to her, I'm going to prove this to you. I said, I do have a defender. And my defender is God. And the truth will come out. So I said, go ahead, please go and defend her with all your might. And she left me frustrated and all that. And it was only a matter of months, and things were revealed. And I knew that, you know what, in this life, sometimes you don't even have to exert any effort.
Don't lift a finger.
You just allow things to be, and then you see things happening. Now, let's give an advice that must come to people.
Okay, 5 important things that one should do in their marriage.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this one short.
And we're going to make it a book.
Okay, I'm going to keep this one very, very, very short. It is knowing that in your marriage, whatever decisions you make on your own affect both of you. There is never a decision in your marriage only suitable for you, that you feel I saw the affect his spouse's out. So whatever decision you make in your marriage, always remember that it affects both of you, no matter how small it is. Whether it's a decision of changing employment, whether it's a decision of venturing into new businesses, or a decision to date outside of your marriage, to cheat on your partner, it affects whatever decision that is, it affects both of you.
Beautiful. Another one?
My second one is forgiveness. Forgiveness. We are growing together. We are evolving together. We are discovering in this process together certain things that we don't like about each other, you know, and we might slip up sometimes, you know. You might do something not to hurt me, but because of that decision you thought was pleasing to you alone, and in the affected negatively. If we are intentional about building our marriage, then we should come back to a place of forgiveness. And forgiveness with a heart to say, Bana, I'm separating, which is my point number 3. Forgiving with the heart of saying, I am separating that problem from our marriage. It is us and that problem. I forgive you for doing that, but this is our safe space.
Sure.
Because a lot of times people take a problem by fake up, and it becomes now a amacheu, you know, because the problems now are in this marriage. So we should be able to stand together next to each other and see a problem and identify it and still talk. How do we solve that problem? Baby, you have a weakness. Your weakness is this. How do we? So how do I help you overcome whatever it is? I mean, from as hard as cheating to as hard as overeating. How do we overcome? Not you have a cheating problem, because then I'm separating myself from it. It's our problem because it affects both of us. So how do we let's sit down. Do you think we should go for counseling? Then it's much easier. Your marriage just flows because there's kupa gland.
Sure.
And then I'm on number 4. Communication.
Okay.
Communication. The minute your spouse does something wrong and they ask you what's wrong, and you say, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You must know, Ubana, that's crack number 1.
Yeah.
Always express your feelings. No matter how difficult it is, always say, in fact, I'm not okay. Do you know why I'm not okay? I'm not okay because of 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about it. I mean, those lines, Tina, are always open 24 hours. Never ever go to bed. Never ever go to bed without speaking to your partner. No matter how, the worst thing. Talk about it until nifumane a solution. My sister in Cape Town says, because we don't want to discuss these things in our home. As is hectic, we sit in the car and we say, we will not leave this car until we hug and kiss. That is when you are intentional about building your marriage.
Yeah.
You know?
The key word there.
Intentional.
Intentionality.
What then do you do if someone is closed? Because you find people where I'm saying to you, can we talk about this situation? And you say, no, there's nothing to talk about. Then you should just re-land your marriage again, reassess if everything is okay with you.
Okay.
Then it means there are more cracks than the communication one. It has gone to a point where even communication won't help, you know, and stop repeating the same things. You know. My 5th one is growing together and staying committed. Grow together with your partner. I once made an example. I think I was sharing a coffee break where I was saying, ufumanisa bana odada bathi umama sekhaya, utata uthi umama sekhaya, and then they feel bana umama sekhaya is grocery money, it's bills, it's school fees, it's clothing for the children, it's the cars paid up and everything else. You know, it's her nails and inwele zakhe. That's how you take care of Mama Sekai. And they believe that there's a separate life that they have to feel, that they have to fulfill out there. Mama Sekai also understand. But I know you're not for example, I can never go with my wife to a chisanyama. Let's say for those people that go to chisanyamas. I can never take my wife to a chisanyama. You know, or higher space of Fazwa, and no some Fazwa, Fazu, the one is and out, and our right. What are you doing? doing there in those places if you were Mama Sekai, So involve your partner in all your business. If you are a soccer fanatic, teach your wife about soccer. If you're someone that enjoys reading like my husband, baby, yeah, let me read for you. You're not forcing it into me, Bana. Hi, Yana, you have to read at least one book a month. You're not doing that, but you are saying, let me read. Do you know what are you hearing? And you make it exciting. Before you know it, Yana now comes home and says, I bought myself a book, because now we are growing together. Camera angles. My husband would never know where to place a camera, so I'll always say, no, you must always check the sun. But baby Nancy, it doesn't mean that they're stupid because they don't know that thing that you know. It doesn't mean it just means this is one place that you are interested in. So you get your partner to understand all these things that excite you, so that even when a spouse passes on and they are listening to people speak, and they discover in that funeral ceremony abantu barelate ngohlobo different to my husband. My husband was not a person owayethanda nojiva. Then kuthiwe yeyi ebeyivala ke iseccle ade abeke i-empty lesavana entloko spine uqonda ubana noma my husband wayesoloko ephethe ibhayibhile siye caweni, so expose onke amacala wakho. Your husband should be able xa ifumana i-call. I remember now we got the worst news about myself from emails, where an email was sent, Bana, this is what I did, and this is what I do, and this is who I am, and whatnot. I did not have to go to you and say, I didn't do all those things. You just from that, you were able to say, Bana, oh my God, these people are really trying their best, So grow together to a point where even if a person came from nowhere and said, this person did this, your partner knows you 100%. And Shiani Emva.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much. As I go on mine quickly.
Yes.
Number one, don't assume, verify. Don't assume anything, but you must always verify. In other words, don't assume how your spouse wants to be loved. Verify with your partner. How do you want to be loved? Paint this picture for me. Show me your world. Take me to your world. When you say you are loved, what happens in your world? By doing so, you are verifying, and once you have verified those facts, then you begin to love your spouse the way they want to be loved, not the way you assume they want to be loved. So that's number one. Don't assume anything, verify everything. Don't assume how your children want to be loved. Verify and ask them, how do you want to be loved? What makes you feel that your dad loves you? What makes you feel that your mom loves you? What do they do to show that? And do the things that matter to them, not the things you think matter to them. So feeding your child, taking them to school, these are things that matter to you as a parent. They don't necessarily matter to them. But going on a soccer practice matters to them more than going to school. So do the things that matter to them, not the things that matter to you only. Number two, because of the wind, you must measure the quality of your marriage constantly. Measure the quality of your marriage constantly. So the exercise that we do, pumpkin, from a scale of 1 to 10. 1, I'm not doing well. 10, I'm doing extremely well. What number will you give me as a husband? How am I doing as a husband? And then you give me a number. If you give me a 4, then I would ask you, baby, what can I do to become a 6? Then you articulate exactly what you want to be done. When I follow those things, and I come later to say, baby, what number will you give me now? And you say, no, I'm giving you a 6. Okay, I'm growing up. What can make me a 9, And then we work on those things. Because whatever you don't measure, you cannot manage. Whatever you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So don't assume into your mchato. Measure your mchato. Measure the quality of mchato wako, because one of the things I've seen about a second marriage is that you become intentional in everything you do. You become intentional because 1, you love being here, and number 2, this has to work properly. know. So you want to alleviate anything that can come and hinder and deter you from the main goal. You know, hence I wouldn't advise everyone to rush into anything, you know, but you must be certain that this is what you want, because then you start living your freedom and your happiness. Are you good?
Good.
Okay, that's number 2. Measure the quality of your marriage constantly, not occasionally. Okay, constantly. Number 3, never ignore the consents of your spouse, no matter how small they are. Never ever ignore the consents of your spouse, no matter how small they are. If there are irritants to her, attend to those so that you don't repeat the same things. Okay, small things. Now, I love getting flowers. Never ignore that, because that's important to you. You know, yeah. Although I don't buy them all the time, but anyways.
I've got a lot of them.
Yeah, you've got
I've
a
just
lot
been
of them.
receiving them every day.
In fact, I bought you in the neighborhood of flowers, man. Yeah, you can go and pick them up from the garden. Number 4, embrace each other's areas of strength and areas of improvement. You must embrace each other's areas of strength and areas of improvement. I don't call them weaknesses, I call them areas of improvement. So you must embrace a person holistically. That is true love.
You can choose.
Don't pick and choose. That's true love. I'm not going to mention 4, the one that you mentioned, the growing together. Number 5, I'm going to share 6 maybe. Number 5, never allow third parties in between you.
Hey,
Okay?
that's a big one.
Children can be a third party, friends can be a third
Family.
party,
Extended
family can be a third party, work or whatever can be third parties. Never allow any
Work
third
and
parties.
business can be third party.
You know? So never allow anything to stand in between you. But family, you know, it's us and them. There must always be us and them situation. Because once you allow one child to require something from you and you say no, and they come together and say yes, there's a problem.
They've entered.
So never allow third parties to come in. Always treat them as third parties and always agree, you know. If you don't agree with what your spouse has done, always go and verify with your spouse before you verify with the third party. Otherwise you're causing cracks. Yeah. So third parties. Hey.
Threat number 1.
Yeah. Whether they are your children or, you know, third parties, family, in-laws and all that, never allow them in between you. Treat them as third parties. And the last one for me is money should never be a swear word in a marriage. Money should never be a swear word in a marriage. Money must be transparent. I think because we have another understanding of what money is. But money should never be a swear word. Money should never be a deciding factor whether you love your spouse or not. You know, when there's no money, you are okay. When money comes in, you have pressures now, you have places to go to. Money will run away from such mindsets.
You talk down on your spouse now because you feel like accountable.
No. Money, how we do it is that money, wherever it comes from, we bring it here and we say, what do we do? And then we decide together. You know, so I no, because I've seen how that breaks.
By the way,
where's my card? I don't even know where my cards are. Because we always have them. So money should never be a swear word. Discuss everything, because money is a peaceable energy. Money runs away from conflict. Conflict and money are not on the same WhatsApp group. Conflict and fights are in the WhatsApp group of lack and poverty. That's where you'd find them. Conflicts. But where there's peace, harmony, and serenity, that's where you'd find money, because money is a peaceable energy. Money is energy. No, no, my friend. So never make money a swear word. Money must be discussed kids must be aware of what is happening, and treat your family. I treat it as by organization, and everyone is a shareholder, and we sit down with all the shareholders and we discuss the matters, and
jonke
singalungisa
phi singajonga
and
phi.
yonke laa nto. Even with children, one of the things that we've learned about children, for example, Tina, in teaching them about money, I remember I asked each and every one of them one day, and I said to them, so what does it mean to be a Daniels? And they started speaking things that didn't really make sense to me. Money this and money. I said, no, my friend. In this family, God first. But when it comes to money, I want you to earn your money. So we introduced something the most commonly we said. Now you no longer have chores, but you are all business owners. So the four came together and formed their own company. I mean, these are young people. They formed their own business and they call themselves Meat Cleaning Services. The other was also owning his own company. The youngest, KIK, is just a busybody. And what we would do is that the chores that they were responsible for were converted to their business opportunities. So they became service providers to the House of Daniels. And now they started executing and rendering their services. If we are not happy, then we would discount the money that we give them. So what I taught them was that then at the end of the month, you must submit an invoice. I submit your invoice, and I gave them invoice books. Submit your invoice, then we'll pay you for the services rendered. And then they started doing funny things where they would ignore and neglect my house for the longest. But when it comes closely to the paying dates or the pay dates, now you'd see them busybodies, doing everything. Daddy, this is what I'm doing. Daddy, this is what I'm doing, But now, because they had learned the principle of earning money, now they know how money comes. So, there are rituals, routines, a culture that you can set up for your family, because any form of culture is a human construct. It is man-made. So you can customize the culture of your family if you want to build a strong family. That is it, Maskomo.
I love it.
I love you.
I want you to give me 5.
Done.
I'm going to say a word, and then you are going to, not sentences, not paragraphs, just a word. Maybe a sentence, not a paragraph. In your marriage, avoid
lies.
Okay. In your marriage, allow
transparency.
In your marriage, avoid
neglect.
In your marriage, allow
peace.
Thank you.
Yeah. In a marriage, allow
love.
Avoid
sure. Avoid rumors and gossip.
Allow
Peace.
Avoid
third parties.
Avoid third parties. One of the things that I forgot,
Avoid
so powerful,
parties.
baby. One of the things that I forgot to mention was that, and this is very important, and this brought healing in my heart and my soul, is that it is okay to affirm your spouse. Affirm each other. Affirm each other. And one of this one, it brings healing to your soul. Affirm one another.
And on that note, you are the most intelligent, the most kind-hearted man. I know. You are the best father to your children, and you love me intentionally. You are so intentional about the love that you are giving. I love you.
I am intentional.
I'm intentional. I love you so much, baby. You mean the world to me.
Thank you.
You mean the world to me. You brighten up even my saddest days. You know, I wake up and put isandla sakho, and once I hold on to your hand, I know that everything is fine with me. Like, I'm okay. Noba ngenzeka into ukuthi i-aeroplane izinquzulele kwathini pha, as long as I wake up and a heartbeat next to me, I'm okay. I'm okay.
That goes for me.
Thank you, baby,
You're
for
welcome.
loving me.
I
Thank
love
you
you.
for loving the children.
Mhm.
And thank you for your heart. I thank God for you.
Oh, thank you. I love you. You're the most warm person I've ever encountered. Yeah, I have never met in my lifetime someone who would love me the way I want to be loved without even telling them how you want to be loved. It's like this person was given your profile, you know, and this person just did the right things. You just paid attention in the right places. I must come. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. No, to enjoy a game. Ay, 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 ay.
I love you,
So I
baby.
honor you. I respect you as my wife, and I thank you for it. So, yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my best friend.
My wife.